Good afternoon all, and welcome to this extraordinary council meeting on the 29th of March, and we have two items to discuss today. Welcome councillors, members of the public, who we've none here. Obviously some will be listening in from home, staff, and I'll call for apologies. Councillor Cameron, I haven't heard, but she had apology. She did. Yeah, Councillor Cameron's an apology. So I'd like to move that we receive the apology. John and Liz, all in favour, please say aye. Aye. Carried. Thank you. Leave of absence is granted. Any extraordinary business? I know of none. Angus?
The ECAN submission? No? Yes?
No, not yet. I'll talk to you about that after the meeting. Declarations of interest? No. We'll move on to item number 4, funding request for additional road maintenance. Welcome Mark and Neil. Do you want to present your report and then add additional info if there is any, and we can go to questions of your clarification. Thanks, Mark.
Yeah, thank you. Not much to add to the report. I think the information in there. It's just wanting to take the opportunity of using a resource that's available for us to do some extra work on our network, which we know needs to do extra work that we don't have to hold on until next year and try to maintain over the winter. So it was just sort of making use of that resource that become available. So yeah, I don't have much more to add to that. So any questions?
That's councillors. Any questions? Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a question in the background for information you gave us. Point number 1, the existing pavement to be to a depth of up to 150 mils. Who makes that up? Is it going to be 150 or can it be 50, or and who's checking it?
It's a combination of the contractor and also our engineers. It depends on the failure that's there. So the mill can go up to 150 mils, but if it only needs to have the 50, that they'll do that and stabilise that portion of it. But generally, they'll normally do at least 100 mils of repair. So it depends on the type of failure that's there, what the surface is like. So.
Yeah, so the road engineer from council certainly makes sure that it's done the right way.
Yeah, the contractor and the engineers between them, yeah.
Yeah, okay, thank you.
Thank you. Just before I go to council, I also have one question. I remember some years ago we tried this method. Might be long before you, Mark, but can you recall, Neil, whether we've used this before? And
yes, I know we have in Lion Road in Methven, where it has worked successfully.
Yep.
There may be others, but that's one that springs to mind.
Yep.
Yeah, there's been nearly 8,000 square metres of stabilised repairs done this financial year already, so this is sort of on top of that. So my experience at Selwyn, it's been used as well. It depends. You can't do it on all failures that are there. It depends on what sort of the depth of base course is there. So you do need that base course there because that's what you're stabilising. So it's adding cement and stabilising it. So what's already there rather than digging it out. If you haven't got that depth of base course, then you can't do it. So there will be some test pits done on a lot of the sites that we're looking at just before going there, just to confirm as well. So, yeah. It depends on the people doing it, so there's a bit of a knack to doing it, so you need to have those operators who do know what they're doing with the machinery and doing stabilising. It's not an exact science, there's a bit of an art to it as well, but they do work if you're doing it in the right place at the right time.
So supervision is key. Yep. Stuart.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. I went down and had a look last Friday. I've got a question and a half. Once it's finished, that's ready to reseal, chip seal, I guess. If we're going to do it sort of into the early part of the winter, how quick are they going to get back with the resealing? Because so often we've seen dig-outs that are not resealed quick enough, and they go back and they've damaged, and they've resealed them and they've never been right. Really the question is, do they put chip seal on? How quick do they get to do it?
Yes, all chip seals. How quick they get there, the surface needs to dry to be able to apply the chip seal. So Havelock Street, for example, that was milled last week and they're sealing it today. So it normally needs 2 or 3 days for it to actually dry. With the stabilised repairs, it's a bit different to a dig-out repair. It has been stabilised, so the surface doesn't get damaged as much by traffic going on it because it's been stabilised, but it does need that time to cure and to dry out so you can stick the chip seal to it. So.
Councillor Lovett?
I'm just going to ask, is this the same material they're putting in the potholes now, this creamy white stuff around the district? The stabiliser, is it the same as that, or is it a different substance completely?
Well, the stabiliser is cement, so cement's added on the surface, then it's rotary hoed in, so that's what's mixed up with it. So it's not what they use for pothole repairs, no.
So it's not pothole material?
No,
Okay.
no.
Councillor Brown?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. What is the costing compared to dig-outs percentage? Is it 50% or 70 or 5?
That's a good question.
I know.
Yeah, it's a bit less. For example, we've spent, I've just received information this morning, so it's actually, on dig-out repairs, we've done 6,000 squares at $320,000 for the year. For our stabiliser repairs, done 8,480 at 330,000. So it's about that difference. It's about 3/4 of the cost, I think. So something like that.
Thank you.
Councillor Alderson?
Thank you. In the report it says they have access to this machine, so does HEB own it? And my question is around, they're going to have good access to it when we want to get this work done before winter?
Yeah, it's owned by HEB. It's been used this year for the first time. They've actually just set it up for the use on the salmon contract, but it's for the HEB maintenance team. So it's not necessarily on call, but it's there and available. They made the offer because it wasn't planned, and that they've finished the work and so on a bit sooner than what they thought, and that's to do with cost escalations and being able to afford to do it with the money they've got as well. And so just wanted to take the opportunity of actually using it if it was available. Otherwise it would either be sitting not being used, and they just wanted to have the opportunity. It was just making the offer and putting up the report. If it's accepted, that's fine. If it's not, then we'll carry on as we are and have to hold those sections of road. So, yeah, yes, it's available for use and maintenance, and it will be ongoing. It's only a new machine for this year. So.
Thank you. It's the answer I was hoping to hear. I totally support the idea.
I just have one question. It's been used in Selwyn as at the moment. Have you or someone been to inspect and see how it's working there successfully?
We haven't, but you're talking with the Selwyn and the HEB staff. They talk to each other and know both, so they do know it works. I mean, the stabilising repair has been used for a long time on lots of networks around the place. So again, just like any repair, if it's done well at the right time on the right material, you'll get a good result out of it. So yeah, there's no guarantee that everything that they do will turn out perfectly, but that's what we're wanting.
Yeah. Lane?
If there's no more questions, I'm quite happy to.
We'll keep your questions going until we get.
Okay, that's fine. There's no lights.
There is no more questions, so Lane. Oh, Roger, John rather. Question?
Thank you, yes. Potentially, if by getting the work done now rather than later in spring, and knowing most firms, they're likely to put their prices up from 1 July, particularly in inflationary times that we are now, our $300,000 might be spent sooner rather than later and get better value.
Yes, although the rates are in the contract and the rates are there for the 5 years of the contract, so whatever the contract period is, but there are cost escalations, so fuel prices do affect that cost. So yes, we have in the past when maintenance contracts had negative cost fluctuations, if you like, so you get giving us some money back, but that doesn't look like happening in the near future. So.
And the second question is, by getting the work done now means we don't have ongoing repairs to pay for over the winter if potholes blow out.
Yeah, on those particular places we were doing it, yes, obviously there will be parts of the network still have to work on, but it's the idea is of getting those worst ones that we wouldn't have been able to attend to, so we don't have to worry about it over the winter, yeah.
Councillor Wilson?
Yes, my question is, how are we working out the payment? Is it per square metre or everything like that? It should be less than the dig out because they're not going as deep, are they? Most dig outs are 300. So have we negotiated a separate price, or how have we worked it?
This is a rate in the contract for stabilised repairs, so it's a square metre rate. Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
The questions are all done. Councillor Brown?
If there's no more questions, I'm quite happy to move the motion as it stands, that council approves additional maintenance funds of $300,000 for the Forestry Reserve Fund to undertake additional road maintenance on failed sections on the network before the winter season. And that council approves the inclusion of 1.7 million from the Forestry Reserve into the roading renewal budget in the draft annual plan 22-23, which will be consulted on with the community.
Councillor Rawlinson, you wish to second?
Yes, I do.
Do you wish to speak to the motion, Councillor Bryant?
I think it's a great thing to do before winter, because we know that winter time is always the worst time of keeping roading going. Doing it before that, it's a winner. I can't see it any other way.
Speakers for or against the motion? I'll speak for the motion. It's good to get this done before the winter. Potholes is an issue out there. We fix one and we just keep moving it somewhere else. And there's lots of potholes that just pothole 2 metre gap, pothole 2 metre gap, pothole. This will solve that. I'm sure it will. And one burst of energy to get these potholes get on top of them before the winter would be ideal. So I'm speaking for the motion. Any speakers for or against? If not, I'll put the motion. I'm in favour. All in favour, please say aye. Aye. Against, carried. Unanimous. Thank you very much, gentlemen. We look forward to the results. Great. Next item of business on the agenda, item number 5.
Only thing, Neil, I'd be good if you send us an email now and again just to tell us which area they're in. I'd be interested for councillors just to see how it's going.
We can do that, yep.
Great. Item number 5, review of My Vaccine passes for council facilities. And Hamish, you speak to this one?
That's a brief introduction, and Sarah will also be able to assist council. I think council understands that the government has lifted mandatory vaccine pass requirements from 11:59 p.m. Next Monday, the 4th of April. But at this stage, the indication is that the country is still at the red level, and council's previous resolution is to have these passes in place on the facilities listed in this report at red, and therefore we need a specific consideration of whether those passes should be lifted. The recommendation is that they can be, which would enable all members of the public to attend those facilities. There's 2 other points I'll just briefly make. One is that we're seeing ongoing changes to the protection framework which don't always sit with the original way in which some of the rules are set up. So we're seeking delegated authority to the Chief Executive at Orange. At the moment, that authority is in place for Green. But what we're starting to see is that the rules around the various levels of the framework are altering, but the level is staying the same, and we think the flexibility of having delegated authority at Orange will enable us to respond to those changes in a more timely fashion than writing reports and coming to council meetings. And secondly, the additional point I'd just like to make is that this goes to the issue of public access to these venues. And in terms of vaccination requirements for staff, that matter rests with the Chief Executive as the employer of those people. And it is my intention that we would maintain vaccination requirements in order to attend these facilities for all staff while we consult staff as to how they feel about that going forward. So the staff are the ones most affected, and we would very much like to get their view. And so it is my intention that if council adopted this recommendation, that members of the public could attend regardless of vaccination status, but that we will go through a process with our staff as to whether or not staff should be vaccinated who work in those facilities. And until that process is complete, then we will require staff to be vaccinated in order to attend those facilities. Sarah may have some additional comments, but we're both here to answer any questions, Mr Mayor, that you may have.
Thank you, Hamish. Sarah, have you anything further to add?
Through you, Mr Mayor, the only other comment to note, because it's probably not as widely known as the headline, is that point 9, with regards to mask use within indoor public venues are as before. So if anyone thinks come the 4th of April they never have to wear a mask indoors in a council facility, they are wrong. So it is only once it gets to green traffic light at this stage that mask use rules change. So I just wanted to make that clear. And yeah, I don't think there's anything else, but happy to ask any questions. Yeah, that's enough.
Thank you, Sarah. Councillors, questions? Liz.
Thank you. Through the chair, and I don't, someone will be able to answer this, but numbers wise, so for example, the Mount Hutt Memorial Hall, there was always a worry that if they didn't have the vaccine pass in place, that they'd only be able to have 25 people in the building for events. So does that then go up to 200 people for events once the vaccine passes off? I'm just a little bit confused because initially the numbers that we were told when this was first announced was a maximum of 25 people. And then when I look at the COVID-19 website, it now says up to 200 people, but it doesn't mention anything about the vaccine pass. So I just hate for this to hinder bookings going forward for the Mount Hutt Memorial Hall, the Art Gallery and Heritage Centre with a sort of...
Yeah, through Mr Chair, as from midnight on the 4th of May, it would make no difference to 4th of April, sorry, yeah. Next Monday. It makes no difference whether the pass is on or not in terms of numbers.
Right.
It does right now. Yes. So the change that was made last Friday means that there would be reduced numbers this week if the vaccine pass was lifted right now.
Right.
But as from midnight next Monday, the setting for numbers is the same regardless of the pass requirements.
Excellent, thank you.
Stuart.
Thanks, Mr Mayor. My question is to the Chief Executive. If we decide that no passes is required or no vaccination is required for the council building and your staff are not happy, are we going to prejudice their opinion? Or
I can't speak for how anybody, including staff, will react to your decision. Because there may be people in the community who, in fact there are people in the community who we know were very supportive of council's decision and were very pleased to be able to go to a facility knowing that the vaccination pass was in place. Equally, there were members of the community, and some have expressed that view to us recently, who are very concerned that they could not attend council facilities because the pass is in place. And I think it's fair to say that staff won't have one single view. There will be some staff who will no doubt are no doubt happy with the current situation, and there may be staff who are perfectly ambivalent to council's decision. In the end, the process that we followed before Christmas was that the council reserved the right to consider the pass on the buildings and the facilities, primarily focused on the rights of members of the public to access those passes, those facilities, and acknowledging that the role of the Chief Executive was to support staff's health and safety via requirements for their vaccination or otherwise. So there'll be mixed views, I guess, is the short answer, Councillor.
Lynette?
I'm actually pleased it's happening because a lot of other councils are doing the same. What we're trying to do here is drop these vaccine passes. We've got to move on but with this, the rest of the world has. But I'm just wondering whether our chief executive is going to get involved with the mayoral forum and push for the removal of the mask wearing use, because to me the rest of the world aren't using them, and we need to advocate for removing them, and also the reasons why the red and orange, the government seems to be dictating whether through this council, all our councillors and that, we've got to start pushing government to their reasoning why they're holding us like this in this country.
I don't think it's the chief executive to advocate at the mayoral forum. It's probably the mayor who would do that.
Or the mayor.
And would he do that to have masks removed? I'm not sure. The government decides on the masks and the mandates and traffic light settings, etc. Masks are a way to protect yourself and protect others. And at whatever stage that you don't need to wear masks, then the government will decide that. I'm not sure whether we can influence that or not. Being the rest of the world not using masks, I see masks on TV all around the world.
They've got a choice. Yeah.
I'm not sure it's a choice or not, but I see the masks on. Yeah, but anything further there, Hamish?
Well, just one final comment, and it sort of segues from that last piece. This council has worked very hard right throughout the pandemic to follow the direction of the government, who is getting presumably the best medical advice available to it in this country. And we have simply tried to support, administer, implement, do the things that the government has asked of us. And this is consistent with that approach. The government has said that from midnight on the 4th of April, mandatory passes are no longer required, and we're responding to that indication from the government. Equally, if at orange and red the government still requires mask use, then we would still require that. We've never tried to second guess the government's science or the evidence that they have gathered. We have simply, and that's put us in really good stead, because of all the myriad of views and all the variety of commentary, it's been a relief for us to consistently respond to the government's directives and trust the research that they have done. So we'll continue to do that. This report, I think, is utterly consistent with that approach that we have been taking for the last 2 years, Mr. Mayor.
Yep, thank you.
I totally support our motion.
I haven't got one quite yet, but I'm about to. I'll move the recommendation we have in front of us, items 1, 2 and 3. And could I have a seconder?
I'll second.
Councillor McMillan. And I'll speak to the motion that vaccination is still the key for protection. It certainly will protect the community going forward, and how long vaccinations last for, don't know, but the government will decide that. About 10% of our community, or just a bit more now, has had COVID, so it's only 10%. There's still 90% have not been, have either not rung in with the virus and said they've got it, or have not had it. It's peaking right at the moment, and it's on the way down. Auckland is on the way down. We're just going over the edge now, I believe, the figures we're getting. So it is heading down. But it's been a cost, and it's been a cost to us all. It's cost as a country, it's been a cost to individuals, to businesses, even to this council it's been a cost. How long it'll keep costing us, well, I'm not too sure, but it's certainly been a cost we can tangibly recognise. So I believe this is a step on the road to the new normal, whatever the new normal is, because we won't be going back pre-COVID days. There's going to be a new normal. So here's one step on the way to it. Open for comments for or against. Councillor Mackay.
Mr. Mayor, I have a procedural question, if I'm allowed to ask.
Yeah.
Can we take it in separate parts, 1, 2 and 3, or is your motion standing as a total?
I can take them in separate parts if you wish. Is there a reason for?
Yes.
Okay, if you'd like to, I can take them in 3 parts then.
Maybe I'll make it, you're going to take it in 3 parts?
I'll take it in 3 parts.
Okay.
Councillor Rawlinson.
Yeah, I support the recommendations, the 3 of them. I think the report's very comprehensive, and it's looking at giving consideration to the vaccinated and non-vaccinated options. but it aligns with the government changes as announced. If they hadn't been announced for next Monday, I'd probably be challenging, but I think it's a good report. Happy to support it.
Thank you. Just Councillor McMillan, are you happy that we take it in three parts, being the seconder? Yep, she is. Yep. Councillor Latham.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Yeah, I support the recommendations with some reservation, because I'm not sure whether the decision by the government was a political decision or a decision made on medical advice. I think, though, as you rightly say, and the Chief Executive has commented, we are at a stage where we can go down this track, so I do support it, but I do just hope that the government's decision was made on medical grounds and not on political grounds.
Councillor Mackay.
Mr. Mayor, I support that council receives the report. I support number 2, but I do not support number 3. And I was supporting the whole lot until the Chief Executive made a wonderful speech a few minutes ago about how this council had followed government procedures and government announcements and government decisions. So on that basis, I actually see, after that wonderful speech that the Chief Executive made, I see no need for 3, because this council and under him will follow the government anyway. To protect the staff, whether it's allowing people in or out. So I see no need for 3. To me, it's just colouring and has no substance to it whatsoever. On the other hand, I also want 3 out because it's the Chief Executive's obligation to look after the staff. It is our obligation to look after our employer, and our employer are the people of this district. And I go back to what I've already said to this council before Christmas, that it's up to those people to make the decision whether they come in or not, whether they are asked to be served at the front door. It's an individual decision making that I spoke about earlier when I think it was on the 12th of December, if I remember rightly, when this was 15th. So I'm sticking to my belief on that, and that's why I don't think 3 is actually required. I think it's superfluous, so there's no need for it, especially after what the Chief Executive said.
Thank you. Well, it is there, and we will vote on either way, whether it's adopted or not, but we'll get to number 3 shortly. Councillor McMillan.
Thank you. I support all 3 of the recommendations, and I'd just like to thank you for bringing this forward so that it is in time with the government lifting off the mandates. I think if we had decided this at our council meeting next Wednesday, it was too late. So I think it was good that we had this extraordinary meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Wilson.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd actually like to move number 1. We've been debating the motion without actually having a motion moved and seconded. Well, how do we progress on to number 1, Philippa?
So the decision has been agreed.
Point of order is? Hang on, Stuart, hang on, Angus. Stuart, just go off. Angus?
I'm way down at the end of the table here. My hearing's not good, but I heard you move the whole motion. And by moving the whole motion, in my considered opinion, Mr. Mayor, you moved 1, 2 and 3. Because that's why I asked you the question. You were adamant that you had moved it as 1. So I don't see the need for any other procedure at this stage.
We'll just double check, and I'll just go to the committee secretary to double check we've got everything in the right order.
Well, there's been an agreement that the motion be taken in part, so I think now the mover and seconder have both supported, and if the Mayor chooses to, he can continue to move with Councillor McMillan continuing to second the motions in part, and then you debate on each of those parts. That's where you need to get to from now.
Yep. So what I'll do is I'll put the first motion and we'll receive the report, then we can debate the second 2. Any debate on receiving the report? If not, I'll put the motion. I'm in favour. All in favour, please say aye. Oh, sorry, Councillor Wilson.
Second it.
No, I've already got to move in the second.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah. I'll put the motion again. I'm in favour. All those in favour, please say aye. Carried, thank you. Now the other two are ready for debate. Any further debate? I decline the right of reply. I'll put the motion number 2, that council removes My Vaccine Pass entry requirements at the following council facilities as listed. I'll put the
I'll second that.
No, I've already got a move and a seconder for it.
And all three of them. We've separated them now.
Yep. I'll put the motion. I'm in favour. All in favour, please say aye. Carried, unanimous. Item number 3, that council, which has already been moved and seconded, I'm just putting the motion, that council delegates to the chief executive all future decisions regarding the operation and or entry to council facilities in regards to COVID-19 and or COVID-19 protection framework at orange and green settings. I'm going to put the motion. I'm in favour. All those in favour, please say aye. Against?
No.
2 against. Carried. Thank you.
Vote
you want
recorded.
recorded?
Vote recorded on 3. Thank you.
3, Councillor Mackay recorded and Councillor Falloon recorded against? Just Councillor Mackay recorded against. Okay, thank you. So that takes us to the end of the business today. I'll declare the meeting closed. Thank you for your attendance.